Well, well, well. Welcome to my classroom. New microphone, at least the transportable one. So we'll see how that sounds. You can let me know. I'm supposed to do CTA. I've got to start. I don't know. I'm not good at the business aspect of this, of, I guess, the intentional reaching out. But please join the circle. I'd really love for you to subscribe, to be a part of this journey and be a part of my experience, thus our experience. I'm not doing this solely for myself. I'm doing it to connect with the people out there. So I guess in reciprocal effort, if there is something of value, something that you enjoy, by all means, please subscribe. That helps me out. I'm shooting for, I think I have to get 500 subscribers to move up to some level. I don't know. I haven't really researched it, but gives me more perks and more whistles and bells to my account. And if not only just you, then share it with somebody that you think could benefit from what I talk about, what you've learned, and the experience. And by sharing it, you are um, maybe helping other people understand their situation and navigate what they're going through. So I really appreciate that if you do. Today, I want to talk about three types of people. There are three types of people. There are those who they make it happen. They're on the court, they're on the field, they're on the stage. They're the presenter, they're the doer, they're the one who raises their hand. Like they make it happen. The second type is the person who helps make it happen, right? If it's a game or an event, they're in the audience. You know, they've shown up, they cheer, they root their player on. They support the activity and disseminate the information and assist in making it happen. So you have those who make it happen, those who help make it happen, and the third group, those who wonder what happened. And I think more often than not, the majority of society, the majority of us, most of the time, we're kind of in that group, right? We're wondering what happened. And that's for in my situation, as I look out into the rest of my classroom, I'll give the directions, I'll point to them on the wall, on the board, and invariably a few minutes down, hand goes up, like, what are we doing? They're just caught up in their own world, right? They have their agenda, their purpose on the forefront, and they're doing them. And that's fine, but it's also not, right? Because you missed out. And it's a bit belaboring and annoying, quite frankly, that all right, let me repeat what I've already said again. Um, Although typically when that's the situation, I'm just like, hopefully the people around you were listening. They were helping to make it happen. So ask them. I think most of us, I think we fall into that category. Let me say it this way, that we fall into that category of what happened, uh, in part because we have our own agenda, right? We're focusing on whatever we need to do, whatever we want to do. But it's also just easier, right? It allows you to just go with the flow. When you're even the second group of people, right? The supporters helping to make it happen, right? You got to get out of your house. You got to get in your car. You got to travel. You got to pay your ticket. You've got to, find your seat. You've got to participate. And there's energy involved in that. And I think more often than not, people just kind of want to be lazy and they're okay with this idea of I don't really know where I'm going on this lazy river, but it's chill, it's good, I'm happy, I'm comfy, so let it roll. So if we look at those three types of people, and I don't know, I'd be curious, what you think. Do you see more doers than supporters? Do you see more supporters than, I don't know what we call them, just people who are so chilled they're lost in the situation. They don't know what's going on. Kind of ignorance is bliss, right? Happily ever after, not participating, just kind of latently being present. Here's a word for you: latent. You're present. You're there. You're just not there, right? So again, to my situation as a teacher, I have students who their body is in the seat, but their mind is far away, right? So they're latent, they're present, but not present. Let me tell you a story. In fact, my students are working on this right now. It's the allegory of the cave. The allegory of the cave, written by Plato, is a situation in which, well, let's get to what an allegory is. Allegory is a story where everything is metaphorical or symbolic. That is, everyone in the story represents an idea, a concept. So it's a story, everything's symbolic, and it's didactic. It has a lesson. It's there to teach you something. So the allegory of the cave, the scenario is a cave, and close up against the wall or near the wall are these three prisoners, and they're since birth. Since birth, they've been there, and they're chained. They're locked in, only to face forward. And in front of them, the end of the cave, a big flat wall. Now, behind them, and they can't see this because they can't turn around, behind them is a fire. And further back, the opening of the cave. So while these three prisoners are forced to stare forward, guards walk by between them and the fire with objects: a dog, a horse, a woman, a vase, different objects. And so that silhouette is projected onto the wall for the soldiers or the prisoners to see. So they only see the shadow, they only see the silhouette. But because that's all they've ever seen, they believe those shadows to be true. They believe those shadows to be real. They've evolved, if that's even the right word, they've created a game. And the game is kind of a guessing game where they try and guess what object is going to be on the wall. And right, they get very excited when they guess it correctly. Ha ha, I knew it was a dog. I'm so smart. So that's kind of how they entertain themselves. What happens is one day, now this is where the translation of the allegory of the cave differs. In one scenario I've read where a guard unshackles one of the prisoners, he frees one of the prisoners and all but forces him out of the cave. In other accounts, other translations, simply the shackles break and the prisoner, kind of curious and in wonderment, meanders off and finds himself outside of the cave. Whichever way they get out, one of these prisoners gets out of the cave. And just as you probably have experienced when you're in a very dark room and then you move outside, right? Your pupil has contracted. Well, actually, it's dilated in the dark, and then it contracts so quickly and so tiny that it just seems everything's black. And there's a transition, a time where you're adjusting to your new environment. So this is emphasized in the allegory for a reason, that there's a time of adjustment where this prisoner, now freed outside of the cave, begins seeing things, and he notices shadows because those are most familiar to him. But then people start pointing out, no, no, that's not the real object. Look up, see that tree? That's the real object. And behind that is the sun, right? The source of truth. So this is all brand new to him. And he's touching the shadow, and then he touches the tree, and he realizes, oh my God, that all this while, what I thought was real, what I thought was true, what I thought was the object was an illusion. It was just a shadow. He has this realization, oh my God, that like this enlightenment of clarity, of understanding. And he realizes, I've got to go back and tell the other prisoners, right? I've got to let them know. And so he does. He cruises back in. He's like, you guys, I have something so important to tell you. It's what we thought was real is fake. It's not. There's shadows, and they're bothered by this. Like, what are you talking about? What we see is what is. In fact, let's play the game. They say. Guess what object we're going to see next on the wall? And he says, well, give me a minute. I can't really see really well because, of course, if you're in the sunlight and then you go inside your house, and especially if you go in a dark cave, again, the reverse of what happened before, that adjustment time needs to happen. And so he's kind of blind. So he's like, I can't see. I don't know what's up there. And they're like, ha, you see, you're the fool. You go out and escape and then come back and expect us to follow you, us to believe you. You can't even play the game. You can't even guess anymore. You're a fool. You're an idiot. In fact, if I could rip my hands from these chains, I would put these hands around your neck and kill you. They get extremely violent and threaten the man's life even. In other words, they choose to stay where they are. They choose to believe in what they see as true. So the man eventually leaves. That's the story. So this allegory, everything is symbolic, right? Everything represents something beyond itself. And so the assignment for my kids, and they're presenting tomorrow, is to come up with a real world event or kind of situation or concept, but relevant to us today, in which you can parallel the allegory of the cave with this current event. So I'm really looking forward to what they come up with. I've heard things about climate change. I've heard things related to politics. I've heard things related to the Super Bowl and the halftime show. So I'm excited about their creativity. And implicit in this assignment is what's important to you, right? And how did the allegory of the cave, how does the allegory of the cave resonate with you today, both in the symbolic elements as well as, most perhaps equally important, the lesson itself? What is the lesson of the allegory of the cave? And therefore, what is the lesson of your current event? What should we learn from that? So I'm really excited about their presentations. But I think this relates to the three types of people, right? Those who make it happen, those who support it happening, and those who wonder what happened. I guess the prisoner who escapes, on his end of things, he makes it happen, right? It's important to note that in the allegory, the prisoner who escaped could have simply kept running, right? It just, okay, I have an enlightenment, I have a realization of what is true, what is real, and good for me, and basically gatekeeps that information and keeps on doing him, right? So, but that doesn't happen. That isn't part of the allegory of the cave. That's not part of the story. He goes back, implying that there's a duty There is an actual obligation, a responsibility that when you know, you need to return, quote, to the cave and share it with the rest. However, I think what the allegory of the cave is also reminding us is, or warning us is, do that. However, you're going to come up against resistance. You are challenging people's ideology, their mentality, their perspective, their their way of life, and you are asking them to help make it happen for themselves and for the greater good of the community. But there's some resistance, right? And so they choose ignorance. They choose in their stubbornness, their closed-mindedness, their defensiveness, their insecurity. Uh, they choose to stay a prisoner of the cave, right? Of their own narrow belief. There's no curiosity. There's no inquisitiveness. There's no wonderment. There's no questioning. It, as the story is told, they're angry at this prisoner for coming back and bringing them this new way of thinking, this new way of life. And so I think in that they become the people who wonder what happened, who don't even wonder what happened. They're content with their head in the sand. They're content on their inner tube cruising down the lazy river while somebody, right, manages the velocity of flow and the current and the speed of that river and has sculpted the side walls, right? Life, you don't have to think about it. You just get to float and do it. And I think there's great danger in that blind following, in that closed-minded mentality where we do not even wonder, right? We do not ask why and how and explain. We kind of chalk it up as I don't care. And so now we have essentially from this story, if we're to look at those prisoners who choose to remain shackled, right, in their what now we can say is ignorance. Before is naivete. They did not know any difference, right? They were born into this position where that's all they knew. But once the enlightened man returns and informs them of another option, of another possibility, of another world of thought and existence, now they have a choice. And choosing not to know, that's ignorance, which, as I tell my kids, is, I think, one of the worst insults you can ever throw at somebody. Being ignorant is you knew better, and yet you did it anyway. You knew that bad things were going to happen, that dangerous things were going to happen, and yet you chose to do it anyway. You did not heed any wisdom, any external advice, any internal voice of, maybe we shouldn't do this. You're like, shut up everything. I'm gonna do it. That's ignorance. That's wicked. That's like stupid on steroids. So I think that's just like one of the ultimate insults. Definitely doesn't get the credit it deserves. That being said, these people who have maintained themselves for now what will be the rest of their lives, right, in this closed-mindedness, this ignorance, that is the reality. Why do we choose to be that third type of person, right, who wonders what happened, who stays locked up in our own ideology? I mean, the easy answer is because it's easy, right? Thinking is hard. It takes time. It takes effort. You have to put elements together in such a way that it's clear and it's logical and even persuasive. I mean, the three elements of the word cogent, which is why I love that word so much. It takes a lot of effort to think critically, to wonder why, and to question. And in my classroom, it's an expected given. It's what we do. But I think in society, wherever that is, be it a classroom, be it a school, be it wherever you work, be it just on the street, it, I think the majority of people, the majority of the time, prefer, because it is a choice, prefer not to engage, not to bother with it. Let somebody else take care of it. Let somebody else do it. And they're okay taking that position of, I'm just a passerby. I'm, for whatever reason, be it because it's easier, because I don't have the time, because I don't want to make the time. So, what do you think about that? Right? I guess the question is, who are you most of the time? And we'll play both scenarios. Are you the person who makes things happen? Are you, and this is mostly, right? Because I think in any given day, let's say, we can be all three, right? Types. But I'm saying for the most part, most of the time throughout your day, do you find yourself mostly that person who makes things happen? Are you one who's down to participate, not be the main actor, not be, the center of the show, but you're there to support it. You're there to put in your effort to push the momentum or the effort forward, right? You help make it happen. Or do you find more often than not, you just kind of wonder, I don't know, what happened? And then to the allegory of the cave, right? Who are you? Because there's a third person involved that we didn't talk about. And it's really interesting. In the allegory of the cave, um, they're mentioned, but not elaborated upon. And I think that's intentional because I think it alludes to kind of their sneakiness, literally to the scenario behind the scenes players who help make it happen. And this is the flip side. This is almost like the dark side of that option. Do you make it happen, help make it happen, or wonder what happened? You have the prisoners who are locked in. They're just kind of passively there, right? Just what happened? You have the prisoner who escapes, takes some time to adjust, and then is enlightened, sees the clarity and the sun itself and objects in their truest form. And with that enlightenment is urged from within to return to make a change, right? He's a doer. And then you've got the people who help make it happen, the guards, right? You need somebody to have shackled these prisoners. You need somebody to keep fueling the fire. You need somebody to walk by between the prisoners and the fire to project the silhouette, the shadow on the wall. So you need those people to help make it happen. But this is the dark side of that concept because what they're helping make happen is an illusion, a world of illusion, of smoke and mirror, right? Of distraction, of social media, of fake news, of narrative that is has the intent to make you believe it's true, but upon further questioning or investigation is just a shadow. So I guess in these types of people, you've got the good guy and the bad guy, right? The one who's here to enlighten and to help and to um, reveal truth and point it out, and disseminate that with the world. And you also have those who are creating those images, creating those shadows, creating those myths, confusing the situation, right? Adding a darkness to the clarity in the cave. And there's almost something somewhat sinister, right? If we are to hold truth in esteem, in high esteem, right? That's the virtue of truth, of what is real. Nowadays, with just this absolute bombardment, this influx, constant influx through news, social media, all streams of information, it's overload, right? No wonder people just mentally shut down. It's like, I can't handle it. I don't, at this point, I don't even care, right? It's a normal reaction to just be overwhelmed and yo, give me my inner tube. I'm putting on some sunscreen. Yep, the water feels great. Oh, it looks like it's at a nice, easy current. And then plunge in, get into the tube and just drift on by, right? What that sounds really nice. When some of either the truth or the shadows is just full of fear or anxiety or chaos, right? So I totally understand that position. I just can't be that person. I can't be the person to to pretend I don't know, to pretend I don't care, to pretend it doesn't either affect me or my students, my family, my community. I can't lock my mind up in such a way where I'm okay believing that those shadows are reality. And so my question to you is, for the most part, who are you? Do you make it happen? Do you get out of the cave, become enlightened, and then feel that source of obligation and duty to then go back and help others find their way at the cost of hatred, at the cost of rejection, at the cost of, being entitled? What, you think you're some prophet, some know-it-all, right? All the hate that is coming your way, do you still do it anyway? Or do you just kind of sit back and pick which side of the table you want to be on, right? Stoke the fire and help the people in the lazy river drift by, the people chained up and see the shadows and smiles on their faces. Are you that person? Or are you that person assisting the individual who comes back with the enlightenment to disseminate that information for the others? Or ultimately, do you just want to wonder what happened, but not even really care? I leave you with that quandary. Who are you? Which type are you? Until then, take care.